So, a verdict finally comes down after 13 long years for one of Hong Kong's worst maritime tragedies. You'd think that would bring closure, right? Well, for the victims' families, it felt more like justice had completely failed them. We need to unpack why.
Just listen to that. That's the voice of Lung Shuk Ling, who lost her brother in the Lamma Island ferry disaster. And I mean, after fighting for answers for over a decade, that reaction, it was a real gut punch. It's the last thing you'd expect to hear after a court ruling.
And what makes her disappointment so confusing is what the court had just announced. The ruling was that all 39 deaths were unlawful killings. Now, that sounds pretty definitive, right? In legal terms, it basically means a criminal act was involved. Think manslaughter or gross negligence. It's supposed to be the finding that paves the way for real accountability.
So that's the big question here, isn't it? How on earth does a verdict of unlawful killing end up feeling like a total failure? To get our heads around that, we need to go all the way back to the beginning, to that tragic night.
Yeah, it all started on a night that was supposed to be a celebration. Okay, so picture this. It's China's National Day. The Lamma IV is packed with employees from the local power company, their families. They're all heading out to watch the fireworks. At 8:20 p.m., out of nowhere, it's hit by another ferry. And then, just 2 minutes later, by 8:22, the boat is gone, sunk, and 39 people, including 8 children, lost their lives. I mean, think about that. 1 minute and 58 seconds. That is an unbelievably fast sinking. There was practically zero time to escape. And that right there became the #1 question for everyone investigating. Why did this ship go down so incredibly fast?
Well, it didn't take long for investigators to find the answer. An independent commission back in 2013 pinpointed one single critical design flaw that turned a simple collision into an absolute catastrophe.
The ship was missing a watertight door. Now you might be wondering, what's that? Well, it's a super basic, fundamental piece of safety equipment on a ship. Think of it like a series of sealed chambers. If you get a hole in one part of the boat, you slam that door shut, the water is contained, and the rest of the ship stays afloat, giving people precious time to get out.
And this really shows you the life or death difference it makes. With the door, a breach is a problem, but it's manageable. Without it, it's a disaster. On the Lamma IV, the water just rushed through the first breach and kept on going, compartment after compartment. It was like a domino effect that sank the ship almost instantly.
So, okay, they figured out what went wrong, but figuring out who was responsible, well, that turned into a whole different story. It was a legal battle that would drag on for over a decade, and it was much, much tougher than anyone imagined.
Now, the 2 captains involved in the crash, they were sentenced pretty early on, but that never answered the big question about the missing door. And believe it or not, in 2020, the government actually decided to drop any further prosecutions. So the families, frustrated and looking for answers, had to take matters into their own hands. They fought in court and forced this final inquest to happen. They literally wouldn't let it go.
So here we are. After all that fighting, we get to the final inquest. We're talking a 44-day hearing, 84 different witnesses. So what did the court finally say? Who was to blame for that missing door and the 39 lives it cost?
And this is where it all starts to fall apart for the families. The court's findings were just a series of devastating legal loopholes. Get this, the court found the shipyard did intentionally leave out the door. It wasn't an accident, but, and this is the killer part, it wasn't technically illegal because the ship's design met the safety standards from all the way back in 1995. And as for the inspectors who were supposed to check the ship, the court said it was unrealistic to expect them to have ever caught it. Unrealistic.
And right there, that's it. That's the reason for all the disappointment and anger we heard about at the start.
So you end up with this massive, painful contradiction. Yes, the deaths were unlawful killings because of what the captains did. But the single fatal flaw that made the crash so deadly, that missing door, according to the court, no one was legally responsible. The shipyard followed outdated rules, the inspectors weren't expected to find it, so no one is to blame for the thing that actually sank the ship.
Listen to this. That's Zhao Bingquan. He was actually on the Lamma IV. He survived, but he lost a sister. And what he's saying just perfectly captures that huge gap, the gap between the horrifying reality of what happened, of a ship sinking in minutes, and a legal outcome that basically says, well, nobody really broke the rules here.
And that's what this case really leaves us with, right? A really tough question. When a tragedy like this happens not because of one single criminal act, but because of a whole system of failures, old laws, a design choice that technically followed those old laws, and an inspection process that wasn't designed to catch it, can you ever really find true accountability? After 13 years, that's the question the families are still wrestling with.